Republicans respond to Trump's conviction, and it's not pretty.
Does having a convicted felon in a district like yours hurt Republicans?
My district's full of very smart people with a firm grasp of reality. They can smell bull.
So no issues nominating a convicted felon?
I have no issues in supporting Donald Trump for president of the United States.
I mean, you're running with the convicted felon at the top of your ticket.
A tainted process, not the same. And a lot of my constituents were focused on the fact of the trial not being fair, the process not being fair, and they're upset and they're angry.
Just in case you missed it, yes, Donald J. Trump was convicted on all 34 counts, and Republicans were not happy at all. Watch.
Soros DAs, 15,000 district attorney's office, God knows how many state judges, destroying our federal election system, influencing how we elect the president of the United States. And if we have a pathway to bring it to the Supreme Court, even though it's rarely used, and by God, we use it. We use every legal quiver that we possibly can muster.
Well, that guy's angry. That's how Fox News reacted. Let's see how Trump supporters reacted.
So I'm not taking this conviction very well, as you could tell. He got convicted on all charges, and you know, at this point, we're going to give it to God. God is in control, and he's going to appeal the decision. It's probably going to go up to the Supreme Court. I feel like there's some things that the judge was not fair on, and I think that that's going to be considered in the appeal.
Jesus Christ. Well, there's no way that Trump's convictions should get directly appealed to the Supreme Court, but with justices like these, you never know.
Now they're fighting like hell because they want to try and get a guilty plea from the Supreme Court of the United States, which I can't imagine because you have presidential immunity. So I want to just thank the 6 Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett for the wisdom and the courage they showed on this long-term, very contentious issue. I was very honored with the Supreme Court because, and this isn't about me, this is about the presidency. They have to do the immunity thing because if you don't, a president will not be able to be a president.
There you have it, folks. The Republicans lost the 2020 election, but they didn't accept it. Then they appealed that loss to several courts, screaming fraud. And the courts found that there was no fraud. They wouldn't accept it. And now here we are, Donald Trump found guilty on all 34 charges on this case, and they're not accepting it. So what we've learned is Republicans will not accept anything when they lose. Kari Lake in Arizona lost, did not accept it. Donald Trump was also found to have been guilty in the sexual assault case with E. Jean Carroll. Republicans did not accept it. So if you're trying to teach your kids responsibility, don't have them watch any of these Republicans that are supporting Donald Trump and saying that he's not guilty and that it was all fixed, and they're coming up with all kinds of excuses, bending over backwards to say that he was not guilty in this hush money trial in New York City, when anybody with an ounce of any common sense knows that Donald Trump was behind paying Stormy Daniels in order to keep her quiet, because just to reiterate what was going on at the time, the Access Hollywood tapes had just come out at the end of the 2016 election, and he stood to lose the votes needed for him to win that election. And so what did they do? They paid Stormy Daniels to be quiet, because if she had come out at that point and said, yes, I had an affair with him while he was married, and then he's trying to pay me to be quiet, and then there was the other affair that he had. If those things came out, it's possible that some of his evangelical base or some of his other base would have decided not to vote for him. And let's remember, the margins were close in the 2016 loss that Hillary had to Donald Trump. So anyone with common sense knows that Donald Trump was guilty in this hush money case. They go to court, they get a jury. The jury is agreed upon by his lawyers as well as the prosecutors. They vet out the jury, they present their case, and the jury comes back and says, yes, guilty on all 34 counts. It wasn't like they said, oh, he's guilty on 17 of the 34, or he's guilty on, 22 of the 34. All 34 counts. They sat there in that room, and the odds are, out of 12 members of the jury, that some of those members were either Trump supporters or had voted for him or liked the guy. But looking at the evidence and the way it's presented in court, which is to say you need to look at the evidence and say that beyond a reasonable doubt, he was guilty. And then you roll tape to all these Congress members who are saying, no, it was a fix. You got that guy, the Fox commentator, saying that, it was the George Soros-backed something or rather. They just keep coming up with conspiracy theories, keep trying to pass the buck, keep trying to not take responsibility for nominating a convicted felon. This is the party of law and order until the law and order comes after them, and then they're no longer the party of law and order. These are the same people who tried to turn around on January 6th and said, no. The people that stormed the Capitol, that tried to overthrow the government, were just tourists. That's what they said, if you recall. And then once the tape rolled and we saw that these guys were MAGA supporters attacking police officers, they were trying to overthrow a democratically elected president. They said, no. Actually, what they were patriots who got caught up in the moment, and there was nothing else to see here. And then it gets worse and worse and worse as we start to find these fake elector cases, the conspiracies that are coming out, not the actual conspiracies that they conspire together to actually steal the election in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. And we're seeing now that these fake electors are part of the grander scheme of what they had planned on January 6th. And by the way, that's a whole other case that Donald Trump is being tried for on the federal level. So now if you're going to be screaming about, Joe Biden's DOJ, this is where you can start screaming about Joe Biden's DOJ, because the DOJ is actually pursuing him in that case. The case that he lost in New York City had nothing to do with the Department of Justice. So all this mumbo jumbo where they're saying, Joe Biden was behind the case in New York is all just crap. It's not real. What happened in New York is that he got caught up in this crime and he's got to do the time. Now we'll find out in July how long that time is going to be. And let's see what his supporters start saying then. Oh my gosh, like that lady that was crying and she's saying God is going to intervene somehow and save this guy. How could you be so blind to a criminal? And by the way, there's people that I am fans of that I support, but if they committed a crime, I'd be like, well, you committed the crime, you got to do the time. That's just how it goes. How about just an ounce of that? How about an ounce of them saying, you know what? Yeah, he committed the crime, and yes, I'm a congressman, a Republican congressman in New York. A jury found him guilty, and he's guilty. How about just saying that, and then saying, but I'm comfortable voting for a convicted felon? How about just saying that? There's no truth, there's no honesty, it's all spin. If you are in the constituency of any of these members of Congress who are not admitting to the fact that Donald Trump was fairly convicted, you should definitely hold their feet to the fire and consider not voting for them, because they're lying to you right in front of your face. And who knows what else they're lying to you about. By the way, the Republican Congress right now has not gotten much done. So again, if you're in these districts, you should look at what your people that you voted for have done for you and reconsider who you're going to vote for. So all of that to say, we're in this situation where one party will not admit, and one party, by the way, already, let's think about Donald Trump, not holding him accountable. He's been impeached twice, but then once it went to the Republican Senate at the time, they would not convict. Even Mitch McConnell famously, after January 6th, he said the court's got to handle this. And in the most recent case where Jack Smith was going after Donald Trump and Donald Trump said, I have immunity, then his lawyers were saying that Congress needs to hold them accountable for January 6th. So who is it? Is it Congress or is it the courts? And now they've already gotten rid of Congress's effectiveness in trying to tame Donald Trump or mete out any kind of penalties or whatever it is, convict him. And now they're trying to get rid of the effectiveness of the courts because they're now saying don't believe in the courts either. They want us to not believe in any branch of our government. They want to give all power to Donald Trump. And why is that? Let's go to the why. The why is because they want to keep doing things like they did with Roe versus Wade. They want to take away more of your rights to do things, and they have a far-right religious push coming. Check out Project 2025. Just Google it, Project 2025. They want to dismantle the government, the people that have been working in government for years and years and years, and put in loyalists that will push through all of what they want, including taking away rights of the LGBTQ community, including taking away more rights from women, including taking away more rights from people that don't agree with them, including messing up the climate more. It's a really pernicious plan that they have. You should check it out. And what is the icing on all of this cake is those last few clips we saw where Donald Trump really has some allies in the Supreme Court who have now just become political hacks. Clarence Thomas, Justice Alito, these people that are holding up this other case that Donald Trump should have been held accountable for January 6th. They're saying that maybe he does have some immunity in certain cases. It's a real illogical argument because the idea is, yes, when you're president, they should not try to convict you for decisions you make as a president. But what he did on January 6th was something that was out of self-interest. It was not an official duty. He might say, oh, I believed that we actually had the election stolen from us. But we all know that's a lie. He's a narcissist. He's a psychopath. He knows that he lost it, but he's learned to just say, no, I didn't. And if you want to know where he learned a lot of this stuff, you should go back and look at this guy, Roy Cohn, who was the lawyer for his father and later for him and took him under his wing. This is one of these guys who played dirty in New York, and he probably helped him learn, just say, no, I didn't, and people will believe you. So, with that said, folks, do your research. Don't believe the hype. Do your research and realize that this guy is a convicted felon, and then ask yourself, do you want to vote for a convicted felon to be your president? By the way, the irony of it all is this is the same guy who took out an ad against the Central Park Five, as they were called, when they were accused. Five young black men were accused of a crime in New York in the late 80s. And he took out an ad saying, bring back the capital punishment and basically execute them. And years later, we come to find out they were exonerated, known now as the Exonerated Five. There's a great series on Netflix about it. You should check it out. But this guy jumped to the conclusion of saying, let's execute these young black men who later were found to be not guilty. And here he is now, guilty. By the way, he's also the same guy who said, lock her up, when he would talk about Hillary Clinton. And just last week in an interview with Fox, he said, I never said lock her up. So not only is he lying about the hush money trial, but he's also lying about the lock her up because he doesn't want to sound like, oh, well, if I said lock her up to her, then you guys should say lock her up, lock him up to me. So this guy, anybody with an iota of common sense knows that he's a guilty criminal. And I pray for that lady who was crying earlier for him, that she sometime in the future wakes up and has an epiphany and realizes that Donald Trump is not the second coming. As a matter of fact, I hope he's going to prison. I'm comedian Maz Jobrani. I have a special on YouTube. It's called The Birds and the Bees. Watch it. Check it out. If you like it, let your friends know. If you don't like it, keep it to yourselves. Guilty.